I'm going to show you how to sign up for Lyft Healthcare, which is an amazing program where Lyft will give you money out of their own pocket to pay for your healthcare. First off, in order to access this, you need to go to your Lyft Driver App, go to the settings, then documents, and then you'll see health insurance right there, sign up for coverage. Then you'll see, and it might take a second to pop up, a picture of an example of what you do have to upload because, of course, you do have to prove that you have health care insurance. And as you can see here, this is the exact time on this video. This may depend upon the time of year, what's going on in terms of the financial aspects, where you live, et cetera, et cetera. You can see right here that if you average, and I will get into some of the requirements later, but if you average at least 15 hours per week, that's a big thing, I could earn, let's say if I would apply for this, either $1,500 or $734 health care subsidy. Sounds pretty awesome, right? Applying is super easy. All you need to do is upload proof. But of course, you do need to qualify first. So let's get into that. First off, as you can see right now, Lyft Healthcare are now in 21 states, bringing new Medicaid transportation options to millions. Just wanted to show this as a quick side note that this is getting a lot more popular. Of course, healthcare is, of course, super important. And when it comes to driving for Lyft and Uber, you are an independent contractor, which means you have to typically pay for healthcare out of pocket. So that being said, let's get into the technical nitty-gritty requirements. First off, as you can see here, you must average at least 15 hours of book time per week in the quarter, plus have a qualifying health plan. So one, you kind of already need healthcare and they'll reimburse you. Secondly, you need to drive at least 15 hours per week in that quarter, have book time of 15 hours per week. Keep this in mind, right? If you, let's say, only drive for 10 hours, like, so you only drive on a Friday night, every week, whatever, this does not count. So keep that in mind. And here's the big thing. This one gets a little technical, which is why I mentioned that earlier, that yes, that seems like a good amount of money that Lyft's going to give me, but it does get technical, as every calendar quarter, drivers who average between 15, and this is important, 15 and 25 hours per week of book time will get 50% of the average Affordable Care Act or ACA contribution for each month in that quarter. If you drive more, drivers who average 25 plus hours per week of book time will get 100% of the average ACA contribution for each month in that quarter. That's why I showed you earlier the different amounts. You're like, wait, that's a pretty different amount, right? That's a pretty big spread of what you could get. It all depends on how much you drive. So if you drive, let's say, just part-time or 15 to 25-ish hours per week, then you're going to get a little bit less money. However, if you drive, let's say, full-time, and you average, as it says here, 25 plus hours per week, you'll get more money. And I'm going to be honest, I think that, at least to me, for most people, if you are driving full-time, you probably are paying for healthcare out of pocket. If you're driving part-time, though, and this is where things get a little tricky. If you're driving part-time, you might already have healthcare, but through somebody else, which can be a bit unfortunate. I'm going to go down here. Now, first off, I'm going to say this before I get into the unfortunate qualifications. The subsidy is based on the average statewide monthly premium for the Bronze Healthcare Insurance Plan as published by Covered California. Now, this is for California, just because it's an example, because it kind of, any single time you pull up something on Lyft, typically, it gets directed to your GPS location. So obviously I'm in California. So that's why this is the rules for California. Covered California is kind of the healthcare service here in California, hence the name, that they give you discounted healthcare and everything. Now going down here, in terms of qualifying for this though, so let's say you do have healthcare and let's say you go through Covered California or your own state's kind of healthcare program. Number one, you must be a subscriber of the plan. Of course, you need to be the person. The second is this plan is not sponsored by an employer. That is a big one. And I really want to highlight this because if, let's say you drive for Lyft and Uber part-time, but let's say you have a 9-to-5 job and they pay for your healthcare or they help pay for it, you unfortunately will not be qualifiable in order to get this healthcare insurance through Lyft. So it is a bit kind of tricky, right? So that's why I think, if anything, although they say 15 plus hours a week, I'm like, I feel like unless you do all different independent contractor jobs or different ones, that is something you have to keep in mind. And remember this too, this does not include Uber. So let's say if you drive for, let's say, Uber and Lyft collectively 15 hours, this is just through Lyft. Now, of course, if you drive more than 15 hours a week, and I'm not gonna lie, you could do that in 2 days, you do qualify, especially if you pay for it out of pocket, and then especially if you drive for 25 hours or more a week, you get even more money from Lyft, which is pretty awesome, right? In addition, it cannot be Medicare, Medicaid, or Medi-Cal. These are the different programs that we have, let's say in California. This is actually similar to Mass Health, for example, in Massachusetts. Every state has their kind of own healthcare mini programs, but it can't qualify, you can't be in certain ones, right? In addition, your plan must qualify as providing minimal essential coverage under the Affordable Care Act. You have to visit the site, for example, of health plans that qualify under the Affordable Health Care Act. This is what's kind of annoying about this, I'm not gonna lie, that on one end, I'm like, hey, they're giving you free money. Can't beat free, and that's good that Lyft's doing this. On the other end, there are some hoops that you do have to kind of jump through, and especially with this, that you do have to kind of do some research, and who knows, maybe if you're signed up for, let's say, a silver plan or gold plan under covered California, for example, it might not qualify under the ACA. So that is kind of annoying that it's kind of this chicken before the egg thing that maybe even before you sign up for Lyft, if you do want to get this, maybe you do some research beforehand, because like I said, if you are on the gold plan already, are you going to lower your plan and then go back to Lyft? This is where it gets kind of annoying, I'm not going to lie. There are a good amount of hoops. Basically what Lyft is saying, hey, we're going to cover you in the most bare essentials way, only though, if you fit all these categories. So I'm not going to lie, I do wish it was a little bit easier to sign up for this or fit the requirements, but I still think this is a good thing, right? There's no denying that. And then, of course, the plan is active during the quarter. And then, of course, these are the different healthcare plans that are ineligible. So if it's sponsored by an employee, like I said before, all these different ones, which is kind of weird, that VA also, okay, all right, and then lastly, proof of enrollment. This is what I showed you earlier in terms of how to sign up, or at least, submit your enrollment, is screenshot your proof of enrollment from Covered California, and it has to be one of the following, or picture of your current healthcare insurance card, and must clearly show you are the subscriber or the person on the plan, and the name of the health plan. Now, in terms of getting paid, the most important part of this video, in terms of you getting your money, as you can see here, at the end of the quarter. So this does depend upon the quarter. I skipped over this super quick, but going up here, these are the calendar quarters, right? As we all know, Q1, 2, 3, and 4. Going back down, at the end of the quarter, you'll receive a healthcare subsidy if you met the booked time requirements and your proof of enrollment has been approved. Like I said earlier, if you drive between 15 and 25 hours a week, you'll get 50% of the ACA for that quarter. If you drive 25 hours or more per week, you'll get 100% of the average ACA contribution for each month in that quarter. And then lastly, in terms of the nitty-gritty, it will be paid out as a bonus in your account within 15 days of submission of proof of enrollment at the end of the quarter. Once your healthcare subsidy is deposited in your account, it's similar to pretty much any earnings that you get, whether it's a Lyft referral or, let's say, the money that you get from driving people around or doing rides, of course. And you'll be able to access those funds as you would any other earnings via Express Pay, Lyft Direct, or direct deposit. Overall, I gotta be honest, a little bit bittersweet. Because on one end, I think this is good. At least it's a step up from where we were before. That I remember when I first started driving for Lyft and Uber as well, I might as well say, none of this existed, right? I had to pay for healthcare insurance out of my own pocket. And even though I was driving full time, I was kind of hung out to drive when it comes to healthcare insurance. And so it is good that, like I've talked about before, when it comes to being an independent contractor or an employee, being an employee, you do typically get health insurance or some variant of it or some kind of benefits, right? Being an independent contractor, you typically don't. And this is why, like I said in other videos, that I look at now as rideshare drivers being in this unique category that they're kind of creating that I'm calling independent contractor with benefits, right? And this is one of these benefits. So on one end, I think this is really good, especially if you're driving full time. Can't beat this, right? On the other end, though, I will say there are some rules, like some of them make sense. Like you need to have a healthcare plan, of course. Well, they're going to reimburse you, right? Like I said, it's a reimbursement thing. So of course, you already have to have healthcare insurance for them to reimburse you. So that makes sense when it comes to reimbursement. The fact that you need to be the person on the plan. The things that get kind of annoying for me, I'm not gonna lie, is one, and it makes some sense, honestly, but it is kind of tricky that, let's say, if you do drive part-time, and let's say or even if you drive full-time, and you have a job that helps out with benefits a little bit, you can't qualify, and you don't qualify. that is kind of annoying. Keep that in mind. The second thing is that your healthcare plan has to provide minimal coverage under the ACA. That is another thing, because like I said, let's say you're somebody who has underlying health conditions, and you might need a little more care than other people. If you do the math out, and I'm going to say as a side note, buying healthcare insurance in America, if you've never done it, it's quite the experience. And there's a lot of super tricky and technical things. But let's say if you're somebody who, let's say, requires just a bit more coverage than the average person, sometimes it's more worth it, or more financially worth it, to buy, let's say, the gold plan or the silver plan, because you know that when you do all the math out, because you have to see, let's say, a doctor more, or you have to see a specialist more, it makes sense that the gold plan will save you money in the long run. And that might not qualify under the ACA, which means that unless you have, like, say, the bare bones, which is pretty much what they're bringing up, unless you actually have the bare bones type of healthcare plan and it falls under the ACA, you also don't qualify. I think that's actually very frustrating, because let's say if you're somebody who's like, say, hey, you know, I have a disability and I drive for Lyft and Uber because I can't really work any other job, but I can drive for Lyft and Uber, and I do ride sharing, and like, say you do have, like, say, a gold plan or even a platinum plan under the different healthcare insurance that exists, and you pick that one specifically because it helps save you money in the long run, you might not qualify for this, and you probably don't unless it falls under that ACA in terms of the minimum essential healthcare coverage. I do think it's kind of annoying. I think it should be a flat across the board, like, hey, I do get the employee aspect that, look, they're like, hey, if you're already getting benefits from another company, why would we also give you benefits? I get that. That, I hate to say, it does make a lot of sense. But in this case, I think it is kind of frustrating, maybe because they're like, hey, we're not gonna, I'm making this up, if you're already spending a ton of money for this premium healthcare plan, why would we give you money? Maybe that's their mindset, but I do think it's kind of annoying. It should be, in my opinion, a fixed thing where they say, hey, if you have to pay healthcare insurance out of pocket and no one else is paying it for you, you should qualify for Lyft Healthcare. That's my thing. And hopefully maybe in the future, and this is just something I'm throwing out there, maybe they do add an extra thing saying, look, like, if you do have an underlying health condition that requires you to see specialists, and as a result of that extra fee for that specialist, you have to get a gold plan because it saves you money in the long run, maybe they can put in an extra, like, asterisk on this or an addendum saying, all right, there could be exceptions where if you do need a specialized healthcare plan given your condition or some situation, that, you know, you still qualify for this. But at the end of the day, this is the way I look at it, is that if you are driving for Lyft and Uber, whether it's part-time, like I said, you have to do 15 hours minimum per week for that quarter. But the way I look at it is, hey, you know what? You might as well apply and might as well submit your documents if, let's say, you do pay for health insurance out of pocket and you also drive more than 15 hours a week in terms of the booked time every single week during that quarter. This is a great way to get extra money. In a sense, if you think about it, you have to pay for healthcare insurance anyway, or at least you should. You should definitely have healthcare insurance. And so in a way, if you do qualify, you're pretty much getting free money.